Listen carefully, because this truth will shake everything you thought you knew about life. The world isn't fair, never has been, and never will be. Right now, as you watch this, someone less talented than you is getting ahead, commanding respect you deserve, living the life you dream of. Why? Because they understand a hidden game, the dark psychology of influence, and you don't. You've been taught to play nice, to wait for respect, to believe fairness matters, but that's exactly how they keep you trapped, invisible and powerless. I've been where you are, smart, hardworking, completely unseen, while less deserving people took the spotlight. Today I'm here to pull back the curtain. Together we'll learn the real rules that turn the overlooked into the untouchable. Are you ready to stop being their victim and start owning your power? Let's begin. Point 1. Fairness is a psychological trap. My young friend, the very first truth you must understand is that fairness is largely an illusion, a psychological trap set by the world to keep you weak, compliant, and easy to overlook. For as long as you believe that if you simply do the right thing, work hard, play fair, treat others kindly, then life will reward you fairly, you will consistently find yourself at a disadvantage. That's because the world doesn't operate on fairness. It operates on influence, power, and strategy. Let me share with you a story about a woman named Sarah. She grew up with the belief that fairness was one of life's fundamental rules. She was the type of person to always give respect, to lend a helping hand without expecting anything in return. Sarah believed that if she did her work right, if she stayed honest and kind, good things would come her way. But in her first job out of college, Sarah quickly discovered a harsh reality. She would spend extra hours perfecting her projects, always waiting her turn patiently during meetings and hoping for the deserving promotion. Instead, promotion after promotion went to colleagues who were more cunning, who flattered the boss, who knew how to play the political game. They weren't necessarily smarter or better at their jobs, but they understood the unspoken rules of power, the dark psychology behind influence. This story is not unique. It is the daily reality for many. When you rely on fairness, you are essentially putting your fate in the hands of those who don't care about fairness. They rewrite the rules to their advantage while you stick to ideals that keep you restrained and powerless. You've been programmed to wait your turn, to believe justice will prevail, and to expect reciprocity. But while you do this, others are actively taking what they want, seizing opportunities, and commanding the respect you deserve. This is not a call to become ruthless or cruel. It is a call to become strategic. The idea of fairness was created and sold to keep good-hearted people in line, to keep you playing a losing game. Niccolo Machiavelli, the Renaissance thinker who studied power and influence like no other, famously said, "Men should either be treated generously or destroyed because they take revenge for slight injuries. For heavy ones, they cannot." What he meant goes beyond physical violence. It's about psychological dominance. Think about slight injuries as moments of disrespect. Someone interrupts you in a meeting, talks over you, dismisses your ideas. Many try to brush these off, hoping to be the bigger person. But those slight injuries accumulate. People remember them and plot subtle revenge. If you show weakness or give only weak pushback, you send a message that you are a target. Strong personalities will continue encroaching because they sense you won't enforce your boundaries. On the other hand, decisive psychological dominance means signaling clearly and without hesitation that disrespect will have consequences. You don't get caught up in arguments or explanations. Instead, you demonstrate through your actions and behaviors that crossing your boundaries is costly. Let me tell you about James. James was once like many young professionals, hoping that hard work alone would earn his place. But he found himself ignored and overshadowed by colleagues who had less skill but more social savvy. One colleague repeatedly interrupted him, poked fun at his ideas, and tried to make him look foolish during group discussions. Early on, James reacted emotionally. He became defensive, argued and tried to explain himself, which only made him look weaker. But James began to realize the trap he was in. Fairness and kindness were not enough. He began to document these instances, And instead of reacting immediately, he planned long-term moves. He spoke privately with his manager, calmly laying out the pattern of disrespect and its impact on the team. When the behavior persisted, he started building alliances with others who noticed the behavior, making it clear that this colleague's actions were unacceptable. Slowly but surely, James became a figure others respected, and the disrespect stopped because it simply wasn't worth the social cost anymore. The shift from expecting fairness to demanding respect through strategic influence is critical. It means no longer praying for others to treat you right. It means designing your environment in a way that forces fairness through your own psychological presence and actions. This isn't about abandoning kindness or becoming cold-hearted. It's about protecting your dignity and your value in a world that does not owe you fairness. It's about recognizing that fairness is a social myth, a construct leveraged by those already in power to keep others compliant. If you keep waiting for fairness, you will remain stuck. The world owes you nothing except what you demand through influence and strategy. Start by recognizing unfairness for what it really is, a call to awaken your own psychological strength. So, here is your first step. Stop being fair to those who are not fair to you. Stop playing by rules others have thrown away. Learn to recognize when your kindness is being exploited and learn to respond decisively. When someone disrespects you, don't waste time explaining or pleading. Show that disrespect comes with real consequences, social, professional, or otherwise. Create a cost for crossing your boundaries. By doing this, you begin to break free from the victim mindset and embrace a mindset of psychological sovereignty. You are no longer waiting for fairness to find you. You are creating the conditions where fairness is irrelevant because your power and influence command respect no matter what. Remember, fairness does not come naturally or automatically. It is earned, often through the hard lessons of influence and strategic thinking. The sooner you accept this truth, the sooner you can stop being anyone's victim and start becoming the person others must respect. Point 2. Ruthlessness is emotional discipline. My young friend, many people misunderstand what it truly means to be ruthless. They think ruthlessness is about losing control, reacting with anger, or simply being harsh and aggressive. But in reality, ruthlessness is the purest form of emotional discipline. It is the ability to feel every emotion deeply but never let those emotions dictate your actions or cloud your judgment. It is the mastery of your inner world so that no insult, attack, or obstacle can rob you of your power. Let me tell you about Alex, a sharp and passionate young professional. When Alex started his career, he let his emotions run wild. When criticized or challenged, he would snap back, get defensive, and sometimes lash out. At first, it felt like asserting himself, but that behavior cost him respect and influence. People quickly learned how to push his buttons and used his emotional reactions to manipulate him, weakening his position without ever openly confronting him. But Alex noticed something important. Around him were colleagues who faced the same pressures and conflicts, but remained calm and composed, never giving in to emotional outbursts. These people earned respect and climbed the ranks effortlessly. Alex realized that true power came not from letting emotions explode, but from keeping control over them. Determined to change, he committed himself to adopt ruthless emotional discipline. Emotional discipline means seeing your feelings as valuable information, not instructions for action. It means recognizing anger, frustration, disappointment, or fear, but then choosing the response that most strategically serves your long-term goals. For example, if someone publicly tries to humiliate you or undermines your reputation, an emotionally reactive person might immediately argue or get defensive, giving their attacker power. But someone with ruthless discipline will take a step back, assess the situation and respond with cold logic, silence, or a carefully measured reply that protects their status and turns the situation to their advantage. Machiavelli himself understood the importance of this concept. He advised that injuries should be inflicted all at once to avoid prolonged arguments or grudges. Similarly, your responses to psychological attacks should be decisive and final, not drawn-out fights that drain your energy and confidence. One well-calculated move has far more impact than countless emotional reactions. Look around you at those who truly command influence and power. Do they regularly lose their temper or get caught up in shouting matches? Rarely. The most effective leaders and influencers maintain emotional sovereignty. They carefully choose when and how to respond and never let their emotions make decisions for them. This kind of emotional strength becomes a source of unstoppable psychological power. When people realize you cannot be manipulated through emotional triggers, their respect for you grows, they treat you with caution, and sometimes even fear. If you're wondering how to develop this kind of emotional ruthlessness, it starts with awareness and practice. When you feel anger rising, instead of reacting immediately, pause and observe the feeling. Ask yourself, what response would best protect my dignity, strengthen my position, and serve my long-term interests? Practice this kind of pause and strategic thinking often until it becomes your natural way of responding. Over time, you'll become less of a slave to impulse and more of a master of your psychological domain. Remember, emotions are powerful, but they are signals, not commands. Learning to harness your emotions, to feel deeply without letting them control you, is one of the greatest acts of psychological dominance you can achieve. So, embrace ruthlessness, not as cruelty, but as discipline. Control your emotional responses like a skilled strategist controls their moves on a chessboard. While others lose their cool and stumble, you will rise above the chaos, confident and composed. This emotional discipline will build unshakable confidence in you and help you become the kind of person others follow, respect, and cannot easily manipulate. Respect. Point 3. Psychological dominance trumps likability. My young friend, this next truth might shake the very foundations of how you interact with the world. You have been programmed since childhood to seek approval, to be likable, to please people around you. But I am here to tell you that being liked is not the same as being respected. Far from it. In the game of life, psychological dominance will always outshine likability. Think about your social circles. Who do people really follow and listen to? Is it the person who nods along, agrees with everyone, and avoids conflict at all costs? Or is it the person who stands firm, who commands the room with strength and confidence, who makes others think twice before crossing them? The first person is safe, predictable, easy to take advantage of. The second person is a force to be reckoned with, unpredictable and influential. Consider a young woman named Lisa. Lisa was always the nicest one in her group, quickly saying yes to every request, afraid to disappoint anyone. She worked hard to be liked by everyone, hoping it would earn her respect and opportunities. But what she discovered was painful. People took her kindness for granted. They crossed boundaries, ignored her needs, and made decisions without her input. She was present, but invisible in critical moments. On the other side was her colleague Mark, who was sometimes harsh, sometimes even intimidating. Mark wasn't liked by everyone, but he was respected and feared. When Mark spoke, people listened. When Mark said no, no one questioned. Mark put his interests first and guarded his boundaries fiercely. Over time, Mark's influence grew while Lisa remained overlooked. This is the raw truth. Being liked puts you in a vulnerable position. People assume the likable person will forgive, won't retaliate, and can be manipulated. Psychological dominance brings a different kind of power. When people respect your strength, they hesitate before crossing you because they know there will be consequences. Machiavelli was blunt about this too. It is much safer to be feared than loved if one has to lack one of the two. Notice, fear here is not about cruelty or tyranny. It's about creating an aura of psychological power so strong that people respect you enough not to disrespect you. This does not mean you have to become a tyrant or a bully. It means you must build a reputation as someone fair but formidable, someone who stands by their values and expectations and does not crumble under pressure. Let me explain how this distinction looks in everyday life. The likable person says yes to everything because they fear disappointing others or losing approval. The dominant person says no without guilt because they value their own time and energy. The likable person tolerates disrespect, hoping it will stop on its own. The dominant person addresses disrespect immediately and firmly. The likable person wants to be included everywhere. The dominant person is selective about where they invest their presence. This shift from seeking to be liked to commanding respect requires a profound psychological change. Instead of asking, "Will they like me if I do this?" you start asking, "Will this action increase or decrease my influence and power?" Instead of making everyone comfortable, you become comfortable with the discomfort of others if it serves your greater goals. When you master this shift, you no longer give your respect freely to those who don't deserve it. Instead, you become someone whose respect others must earn, who controls access not only to their time, but also to their social approval. Building psychological dominance over likability is not about being cold or uncaring. It's about being strategically assertive, consistently showing your personal standards and boundaries. Let others compete for your approval, not the other way around. This mindset will change everything you do, from how you negotiate at work, to the relationships you build, to how you carry yourself in any social setting. When you stop chasing likability and start building dominance, you become someone impossible to ignore. Point 4. Decisive action. Create psychological superiority. My young friend, one of the biggest mistakes people make, and I've seen it countless times, is confusing constant activity with real power. They try to control situations by making many weak moves instead of fewer, strong, decisive actions. This habit dilutes their influence and makes them look ineffective and predictable. Let me explain. Imagine you're at work or in a social group where someone consistently disrespects your opinions, interrupts you, or ignores your boundaries. What do most people do? They complain repeatedly, give countless warnings, beg for respect, and react emotionally. Unfortunately, these actions rarely lead to change. Instead, they teach others that your threats or complaints aren't serious. People tune out your words and walk all over you. Here's where psychological dominance comes in. Those who truly command respect and influence don't waste their energy on empty warnings or repeated conflicts. They act decisively with force and clarity at the right moment. A single, firm move sends a message far stronger and more lasting than dozens of weak protests. Let me share the story of Mia. Mia had a friend who habitually cancelled their plans at the last minute and showed up late without apology. At first, Mia tried to be understanding, but eventually felt repeatedly disrespected. She would complain, hint at disappointment, and try to make her friend aware of the problem. But her friend continued the behavior without any consequences. Then Mia changed her approach. Instead of repeated small complaints, she announced that she would only make plans with those who respected her time and would be honest about their attendance. The next time her friend cancelled last minute, Mia simply stopped making plans with her. No drama, no gossip, just a clear, decisive boundary. Over time, this firm approach made a remarkable difference. People around Mia realized that her time was valuable and that she meant what she said. Her social sphere adjusted, and she gained psychological superiority because her actions consistently matched her words. Machiavelli highlighted this when he said, "If an injury has to be done to a man, it should be so severe that his vengeance need not be feared." In other words, decisive action must be strong and final enough to stop ongoing challenges or disrespect. It should clearly communicate that further transgressions will not be tolerated. This principle applies everywhere. Rather than repeatedly arguing your point, make actions that speak louder than words. Instead of always being available and trying to please everyone, occasionally become unavailable so others realize the true value of your presence. Instead of soft responses to disrespect, set clear, firm consequences that others understand. Decisive action cuts through noise and uncertainty. It forces others to adjust and respect your boundaries because they know your words are backed by real consequences. In your personal and professional life, those who make fewer but stronger moves create psychological superiority. They build a reputation of power and authenticity, not weakness and inconsistency. So, my young friend, stop spreading yourself thin with endless warnings, complaints, or reactions. Choose your battles wisely. When it's time to act, make your move clear, strong, and unforgettable. This is how you build lasting influence and unstoppable respect. Point 5. Perception management is reality. Control, my young friend. Here's a truth many fail to grasp. People's perception of you often outweighs the reality of who you really are. What others see, hear, and believe about you shapes how they treat you, what opportunities come your way, and ultimately, the influence you hold. In fact, managing how others perceive you is one of the most powerful psychological tools you can master. Think about it. How many times have you met someone who seems absolutely confident and successful, even though you know little about their actual skills or achievements? And how often have you seen genuinely talented people overlooked simply because they failed to project their value effectively? This happens because human beings make split-second judgments based on surface-level signals, your appearance, body language, tone of voice, and social proof. Imagine a young man named David. David was skilled and knowledgeable but didn't realize how much his slouched posture, avoiding eye contact, and hesitant voice affected how others saw him. Despite his talent, he was often overlooked for leadership roles and compelling opportunities. Meanwhile, his peer, who wasn't as skilled but walked into every room with confident posture, made strong eye contact and spoke clearly, was promoted rapidly and became a natural leader. This is not about being fake or dishonest. It's about strategically highlighting your authentic strengths and managing the stories people tell about you. Machiavelli observed that most people judge more from appearances than from reality. Few have the time or interest to investigate deeply. Your reputation, that is what people think you are, is your real power. Perception management means actively shaping this reputation. It requires you to be mindful of how you present yourself in every interaction. Your body language, the way you dress, your voice tone, these send powerful messages beyond any words you speak. Coming into a room with confidence tells others you belong there and deserve respect. Slouching or avoiding eye contact weakens your standing no matter how great your ideas are. Beyond physical presence, perception management includes crafting the narrative of your achievements. Two people may accomplish the same thing, but the one who deliberately shares their success in a way that emphasizes strategy, leadership, and value gains far more recognition than the person who assumes their work speaks for itself. Think about social media. Who gets more attention? The person who documents every step of their journey confidently, sharing wins strategically, or the one who remains silent, hoping their work speaks loud enough? The same principle holds true in face-to-face life. The person who manages perceptions controls the narrative and with it influence. David learned to change. He started standing taller, making eye contact, and speaking with clear conviction. He also began sharing his successes and contributions with colleagues and leadership in a confident, strategic way. Over time, people's perception shifted. Doors opened, opportunities followed. His reality did not change overnight, but the change in perception created the reality he wanted. Remember, people treat you based on the image you project. To gain psychological power, you must train others to see you as valuable, competent, and deserving of respect. If you leave perception to chance, others will define it, usually not in your favor. In practical terms, here's what you can do. Consciously craft your appearance, voice, and body language to communicate confidence and authority. Share your achievements strategically, associating yourself with successful people and high-value activities, and maintain some mystery so others fill in the blanks with positive assumptions rather than weaknesses. Project confidence even when you feel uncertain, because confidence is contagious, uncertainty is repulsive. Your reputation is your most precious asset. Protect it, nurture it, and leverage it wisely. Master perception management, and you will control the reality others experience, making psychological dominance a natural outcome. Point 6. Narrative control is psychological warfare. My young friend, The ultimate battlefield of influence is not just what you do, but the story you tell about what you do. Controlling the narrative, the way events are interpreted and remembered, is true psychological power. Every situation, every action can be framed in countless ways. The way your success, failure, or even conflict is presented determines how others perceive you and react to you. Consider this. You make a tough decision that some people find unpopular. Do they see you as selfish, or do they understand you as a principled leader with long-term vision? You're attacked with lies or rumors. Who controls the story that spreads? In many cases, the person who tells their version first wins the battle of perception, regardless of the actual facts. Take the example of Sarah, who decided to cut ties with a toxic friend, draining her energy. Some called Sarah selfish, claiming she abandoned someone in need. But Sarah knew that if she remained silent, that version of the story would control how others saw her. Instead, she framed the narrative. She shared that she had to set firm boundaries for her mental health and that the friend repeatedly disrespected basic principles of mutual respect. By taking control, she ensured people understood her decision as strength and wisdom, not cruelty. Machiavelli said it simply, "Men judge more by appearances than by reality, because everyone can see but few can understand." This means stories often matter more than facts. Your ability to craft and control these stories is a form of psychological warfare no one else can win for you. Narrative control is proactive. When you succeed, you tell the story emphasizing your strategy, perseverance, and growth, not luck or chance. When you face setbacks, you craft stories about what you learned and how you will come back stronger instead of letting failure define you. And when others attack, you don't just defend yourself, you reshape the attack to highlight the attacker's flaws or weaknesses. Let me give you a more vivid example. Imagine you make a bold business decision that upsets some partners. Without narrative control, rumors swirl that you acted selfishly or recklessly. With narrative control, you share your vision, the reasons behind your decision, and the principles that guided you. You frame the story as one of bravery and foresight, making your critics look short-sighted or petty. In personal conflicts, narrative control works similarly. If someone spreads a negative story about you, don't just go silent or react emotionally. Craft a counter-narrative that emphasizes your strengths, integrity, and the true fact. This can turn attacks into opportunities for demonstrating your strategic mind and character. Advanced narrative control means anticipating how actions will be interpreted before you act. You don't wait for stories to be told. You tell your own story first. You shape the meanings around your actions so that no one else's version can take hold against you. In practice, always consider not just what you do, but how people will talk about it. Prepare your message beforehand. When hard decisions are needed, present them with clear principles and long-term benefits. Build your reputation as a storyteller who shapes truth rather than a victim of falsehood. Mastering narrative control turns everyday life into a battlefield where you own the story. And owning the story means owning the power. Point 7. Systematic consequences create psychological authority. My young friend, real power doesn't come from emotional outbursts or empty threats. It comes from creating systems, predictable patterns of behavior, and consequences that remove your power from others' hands and place it firmly under your control. This is psychological mastery. When people know exactly what to expect from their actions toward you, you build unshakable authority that doesn't require constant enforcement. Consider this. When you base your influence on anger or shouting, you give others the keys to unlock your power. They learn which buttons to push to make you react, and they manipulate those triggers. Your authority becomes unstable because it depends on your mood, on your willingness to enforce boundaries in the moment. Now imagine something different. A system where certain behaviors automatically lead to specific, consistent outcomes no matter your emotional state. This kind of system creates psychological authority that is respected because it is logical, reliable, and beyond personal drama. Let me share a story about Rachel. Rachel was tired of friends and colleagues constantly disrespecting her time and generosity. People often expected her to organize events but rarely showed up or cancelled last minute. Early on, Rachel reacted emotionally. She complained, guilt-tripped, and expressed frustration. But nothing changed. Disrespect remained. Then Rachel implemented a clear system. She would only make plans with those who confirmed attendance and arrived punctually. If someone repeatedly cancelled or was late, they simply weren't invited anymore. Rachel didn't announce it like a warning or punishment. It was a natural consequence of the system she set up. Her respect for her own time gave others no choice but to adjust their behavior. This systematic approach removed the power struggle from her relationships. People couldn't argue with a system. They had to choose whether to respect her rules or face exclusion. Psychological authority was no longer dependent on Rachel's emotional energy, but on a logical, consistent framework everyone understood. Machiavelli understood this principle deeply. He said a wise ruler should rely on what is within his control, not on the unpredictable behavior of others. Creating systems of consequence puts control squarely in your hand. Think about how this applies in your life. Instead of repeatedly arguing with people who take advantage of your generosity or disrespect your boundaries, set clear, automatic consequences. For example, if someone misses deadlines or behaves disrespectfully, you may limit the responsibilities you give them or reduce your time spent with them, without announcements or negotiations. The system works simply because it is logical and consistent. The beauty of this approach is its self-maintaining nature. You don't have to constantly police others or enforce boundaries emotionally. The natural consequences themselves teach people how to treat you. They learn fast that disrespect or neglect costs them access to your value. Psychologically dominant individuals build and maintain their authority this way. They move beyond emotional reactions and rely on systems that safeguard their time, energy, and respect. Systematic consequences also free you from the trap of being reactive. You no longer burn yourself out arguing or pleading for respect. Instead, you create an environment where respect is the natural, necessary path for anyone who wants to remain close or benefit from your influence. So, my young friend, think carefully about the systems you operate. What predictable rules and consequences exist around your time, energy, and value? Where are you still giving power to others through inconsistent enforcement or emotional reactions? It's time to build unbreakable psychological authority by designing logical, consistent consequences that work even when you're not actively enforcing them. This transformation will elevate your influence, create respect, and protect you from manipulation. It's the mark of true psychological mastery, power that does not depend on aggression, but on unshakable, reliable structure. Point 8. Silent dominance. Is ultimate power, my young friend. The most powerful form of psychological dominance is silent dominance, quiet, unseen, but deeply felt. The loudest in the room aren't always the most powerful. Those who constantly boast about how tough, smart, or ruthless they are often compensate for what they lack. Real power doesn't need announcements, declarations, or grandstanding. It works beneath the surface, felt by others who can't quite explain it, but who know they must respect it. Think about the most dominant people you've encountered. Are they the ones who constantly talk about their achievements or threaten others? Usually not. They are calm, composed, and watchful. They speak less but say more through their presence, actions, and results. Let me tell you about Ahmad, a young man who learned this lesson hard. Early in his career, Ahmad tried to prove himself with loud opinions, aggressive tactics, and self-promotion. But despite his noise, he was often overlooked or resisted. Then Ahmad shifted. He stopped competing with volume and started focusing on strategic observation and quiet action. He listened carefully, learned from others, and made moves that were subtle but highly effective. Ahmad began working behind the scenes, building alliances without fanfare and positioning himself as indispensable without overt claims. His competitors didn't see his moves until it was too late to react. His influence grew steadily, not through words, but through undeniable results. This is the essence of silent dominance, being like the fox and the lion, as Machiavelli said. You must be cunning like a fox to recognize traps and strategic like a lion to scare away wolves. The key is knowing when to switch from one to the other without telegraphing your intentions. Silent dominance is about strategic discretion. It means gathering information while revealing little about yourself, building power quietly, and letting results speak louder than words. It means undermining adversaries without obvious confrontation and allowing others to feel your influence without seeing its source. Many confuse silence with weakness, but silent dominance transforms quiet presence into an instrument of authority. When you operate this way, people feel your power before they even hear you speak. Your influence seems natural, inevitable, and unstoppable. To practice silent dominance, start by cultivating patience and observation over impulsive action. Learn to hold back your moves, choosing the right time and place to exert your influence. Build relationships strategically, always mindful of long-term benefits rather than immediate approval. Keep your true plans close to your chest, sharing only what is necessary. Remember, not every battle needs to be fought openly. Often, the most decisive victories come from subtle, indirect moves that leave competitors unaware until it's too late. This kind of silent power is rare and precious. It's psychological dominance perfected, working behind the curtain while the world sees the results, not the invisible strings. So, my young friend, aim to build this silent empire of influence. Let others make noise and seek attention. You will build your legacy quietly but solidly. Your power will be felt deeply, respected universally, and never challenged lightly. Closing, my young friend, everything I've shared with you today is more than just advice. It is a call to awaken your inner power. The world around you is ruled by psychological forces most never see but all must navigate. You have a choice. Remain a victim of these unseen rules or become someone who understands and masters them. You've been trained to think that strength is harshness and influence is luck. But real power is strategic, deliberate, and quiet. It is about owning your mind, your emotions, and your narrative. It is about building a life where you are impossible to ignore, dangerously confident, respected, and unshakable. The choice is yours now. Refuse to be dominated. Start your journey toward true psychological sovereignty today. Remember, silent dominance is the supreme form of power. Now go own it.